So there's this rhythm in the exhibition where you're kind of in galleries that are just purely looking at art, and then you're kind of in these immersive environments that kind of take you a little bit deeper into Jean-Michel's world.
Let me ask you, in the course of sitting down with the family to go through all of the possible incarnations, is there a favorite piece or part of the exhibit that, really resonated with you?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think that the studio setup is really special because there's so many personal artifacts and works of art in there, and also the fact that we're kind of having this projection of Jean-Michel painting. I mean, the idea is that you kind of, feel his real kind of creative process when you enter this environment. So that's probably my favorite part. And there's music playing as well, so.
I know that these immersive Van Gogh exhibits became all the rage last year. Was there ever the temptation to try to take it to that level of what's the best way to say it? Showmanship.
Oh God, no.
Right. I was hoping you would say that. Right?
Absolutely not. I mean, when we talk about immersive environments, we talk about immersive environments with real artifacts and real things, as well as audio and video. It's not one-dimensional like Van Gogh was. This is very three-dimensional in many ways. So yeah, no, we wouldn't attempt anything like that.
If someone comes to the exhibit, do you think there's going to be a particular part of the exhibit that especially surprises someone? When you got into helping the family and look at all this material, what surprised you? What did you come across that you're like, this is amazing. This is something I would have never anticipated.
I mean, I think it's just the sheer number of works that have never been seen, and the drawings and the intimacy of the drawings are really pretty spectacular. I mean, obviously they have, some masterpieces and, some of his paintings on wooden fences and wood and large canvases, but I think the drawings are pretty extraordinary, and there's a lot of them in the exhibition. Also, kind of the family photographs and the personal artifacts are also pretty amazing. I think it's just really the combination of all of that just will give visitors a picture of Jean-Michel that they've never had before.
So are there any thoughts about the exhibit traveling? What do you think?
Yes, I think we're exploring the possibilities of it traveling.
Again, it's probably not a question you have an answer to, but has the family ever thought about having a permanent space?
I think it might be something they could be considering in the future. But this is kind of, this is almost like dipping your toe in the water, in terms of exhibitions and, showing his work publicly. So, I don't think anything's off the table.
I read about some of the things that you've done, and it looks like you've really created some amazing visitor experiences over the years.
Oh, thanks.
You mentioned the Rolling Stones, but, it looks like there's just a whole list of amazing experiences that you've been involved with over the years. Can you just kind of call to mind a few that kind of highlight, the best of your career?
Sure. Well, I mean, I've been lucky to work with some of the cultural icons. I worked with Walt Disney's daughter on the Walt Disney Museum in San Francisco, which was a very kind of unique project. And again, kind of working with a family legacy and dynasty to create a very personal portrait of a man. That was pretty extraordinary. And then I would say also Harley Davidson's 100th anniversary, again, kind of a cultural icon of a company with really kind of a big popular culture aspect to their motorcycles. I think those are a couple of the things that I've worked on. I also, worked at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for several years. So I really kind of embrace these stories that you can really tell history through kind of popular culture and cultural identification with the subject matter. And Jean-Michel is the same way. I mean, his, even though he's a fine artist, kind of his legacy is kind of way beyond just his artwork. And that's what I think is the commonality between all the other projects I've worked on as well. Same thing with the Rolling Stones. I mean, they're musicians, but their cultural influence goes way beyond their music.
And so, it was obvious, part of the story. I hate to backtrack for a moment back to Jean-Michel's score, but it seemed like part of the story, at least as it's laid out in the book, and I feel like other people have kind of touched on it before, is Jean-Michel's relationship with his father, and his father's expectations based on the expectations his culture had on him growing up. They both wanted success, but it was obvious that how Jean-Michel was going about it didn't really seem to lend itself to any sort of confidence that success was going to happen. And is that complicated relationship between his father's expectations and trying to fulfill that in his own way, is that something that is touched on in the exhibit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I mean, probably more in the book than in the exhibition. But, the irony is that Gerard Basquiat had kind of like a similar trajectory to his son. I mean, he left Haiti as a young man with basically nothing to seek fame and fortune in New York City. And, when you think kind of what Jean-Michel went through, it wasn't dissimilar. I mean, in some ways, he kind of left home and felt that this was something that he had to do. And, I think Gerard was kind of worried for him. What happens if he didn't succeed? I mean, you want the best for your children. And, being an artist isn't exactly a sure path to success, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
So, I think that that's really, the narrative that, Gerard supported him along the way, but was so, kind of worried and concerned that, how difficult it was going to be. But, the determination of Jean-Michel, kind of led him on this path. So,
the specifics for the exhibit, it's the Starrett-Lehigh Building, correct?
Correct.
And when does the show open?
April 9th.
April 9th. And if folks are interested in the show or the book, is there a website to direct people to?
Yes, the King Pleasure website, basquiat-kingpleasure.com.
What else should we know, Ileen? Is there anything that I have failed to highlight that you think is really interesting?
I think you've done a very good job. The other thing I would add is that the Palladium space that we're creating, during the run of the exhibition, we'll be having special events and programs in there. We've been working with Vice is another one of our sponsors, and they're going to be working with us for some fashion shows, films, talkbacks. So we're really trying to activate that space during the run of the exhibition as well. So,
interesting. So it's you've in addition to an exhibit, you've created a nightclub right there.
Exactly. We want everybody to kind of relive their misspent youth in the 1980s. And if you weren't alive then, you have a chance to do it now. So
has anyone asked to be married in the exhibit yet?
Not yet. Well, listen, the exhibition hasn't. It's not fully birthed yet. So it's still, is still working on it, and we'll be working up until the last minute to get everything perfect.
So are you under stress right now?
Just a little. Just a little.
Just a little.
So, but yeah, it's going to be amazing. I think it will really blow people's minds. I mean, I think just the combination of Jean-Michel's work in this environment, designed by David Adjaye, it's so unique and so magnificent that I think people will just be absolutely blown away by it.
Well, Ileen, it's been a real pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank you.
I can't wait to experience the exhibit myself, and I wish you the best of luck in trying to get sleep between now and April 9th.
Thank you so much.
And now, the news.
We're beginning to see a rollback of vaccine and mask policies at museums as fears of the Omicron COVID variant finally wind down. As of March 7th, New York City has finally eliminated local vaccine and mask policies. But that doesn't mean that vaccine and mask policies aren't still in place. While museums like the Met and the Brooklyn Museum no longer require the precautions, museums like MoMA and the Whitney do. In D.C., the Smithsonian and the National Gallery no longer require masks. On the West Coast, LACMA is still requiring vaccination proof and masks, while other museums like MoCA require a mask if you don't have proof of vaccination. The bottom line is if you're not vaccinated, you probably want to check your museum's policy before heading out to that show you're planning to see. In response to the fighting in the Ukraine, if you're looking for ways you can get involved in supporting artists displaced by the conflict, we have a few suggestions. The Ukrainian Emergency Art Fund is a fundraising campaign from the Kyiv-based art gallery The Naked Room, which is representing Ukraine at the Venice Biennale. Funds from the campaign will go directly to aid Ukrainian artists and culture workers. You can learn more at ueaf.moca.org.ua. The folks behind the Art Support Pledge have created the Ukraine Support Pledge on Instagram. Use the hashtag #Ukraine Support Pledge to find work for sale for either $200 or £200 each, whose proceeds will then be donated to relief funds through the Just Giving site. The France-based Galerie Poguet is currently holding a sale of work by one of its artists who resides in Kyiv and is currently taking refuge there in an art gallery that had previously been a Soviet-era bomb shelter. Proceeds of the sale of works by Nikita Kadan will benefit the artist and an emergency relief fund. You can get more details at GALERIEPOGGI.com. And lastly, check out your favorite NFT marketplace. Each is promoting a sale of NFTs that benefit war relief efforts. If you haven't dipped your toe into the NFT water yet, this might be the perfect reason to take that first step. That's all the time we have for this week. You've been listening to Art Sense. You can find the show on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe. And while you're there, please rate the show and leave a quick review. Your feedback is the key to other folks finding us. And if you'd like to see images related to the conversation, read the transcript, and find other bonus features, you can go to canvia.art and click on the podcast tab. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can email me at craig@canvia.art. Thanks for listening.